Excuse me, if we could get everybody's attention. If everyone could please take a seat, we're going to start shortly. Thank you. So the first thing I'll do is mention the logistics of the room. So we're setting up some more chairs in the back. You have agendas in front of you. Washrooms are back here. Use them if you need them. They're hard to find, but they're back and around the corner. Don't go the wrong way and go off the building. That's not a good or recommended path. So thank you everyone for coming. My name's Jeff Watts. I'm the president of Prodigy, and glad to be here with our partner in crime, solving crime problems. So Greg from SecureKey, it's our pleasure to be here. We're very thankful to have this opportunity to take some of your time to present to you the things that are happening in the marketplace and the exciting things that are happening. We're fortunate that we partnered early with our friends at SecureKey, as we believe in the potential of what they're doing and what the marketplace has to do, and that everyone in this room has a role to play in that. I think it's critical for us in our economy, and I think we have a great opportunity ahead of us all. So thank you for coming. Greg?
Awesome. I have to lower the mic. That work? Sort of works. Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for taking time from your busy days to come see what we're up to. I think it's a good partnership we have with Prodigy, so you'll see a lot of opportunities, hopefully, in what we're doing. And if you have questions, feel free to shout them out. Like, this shouldn't be just one way. Like, if you have stuff or you want to call bull on something, go for it. We'll take it. So I thought I'd take you a little bit through what it is we're trying to solve. These are funny different color screens. Okay. I think everyone knows what we're trying to solve, right? Like, our view is this basic identity problem. Knowing someone is who they say they are is broken. So if someone shows up and has a driver's license that says they're Greg Wolfond at a bank to get a mortgage, it might be Greg Wolfond. Or it may be someone who has a fake driver's license that says they're Greg Wolfond because they want to get a mortgage or a loan or something else. And the banks are seeing this in spades. And the kind of data that people use on the phone when Greg's trying to prove it's Greg doesn't work, right? Cap 1 breach, 6 million Canadians, name, address, date of birth, SIN number, income, all of this is out there. Desjardins was 2.7 million people. TU this week was 37,000 people. And they say, well, it wasn't our security. It's an employee at a bank who just decides to share this data. But what it means is that problem of just answering knowledge-based questions to prove you're you, or someone else to prove they're you, doesn't work anymore, right? So what are we going to find in this new world of how we're going to make things go better when fraud is kind of going through the roof and the bad guys are figuring out I can take this data? So our kind of mission at SecureKey is to really say that that's broken. The whole old models of looking at a piece of plastic that's printed or answering knowledge-based questions to prove someone is who they say they are isn't strong enough anymore for identity validation. And we have to find solutions that work online. So people talk about digital ID, so online for sure, but also on the call center. Someone's calling the call center trying to prove who they are. Is that working? How long does it take? How much does it cost for a call? What if they could prove who they are in seconds and not waste your call center time and have a higher assurance than answering those questions? And in person, when I'm showing up to prove it's me, how do I do that with a stronger assertion than just a piece of plastic? So that's kind of what SecureKey's been around to do for a while. So there's two different services you know us about. One of them is Concierge. Hugh, I know you used it this morning, logging into government. So the whole idea there was, let's make it easier for people to remember their password, use their strong bank auth, to come back to see your CRA records, to see your unemployment records, to book a park site with Parks Canada, any of these things. And then it's a password you remember. So for things that are high value but infrequent use, we all know we don't remember that uppercase, lowercase, number, letter, password. So can I use something that's trusted? So that was Concierge. I'll show on the next slide. It's got a lot of usage now, but the new one is Verified Me, and we'll talk a little bit about what Verified Me is doing. Concierge has about 15.5 million credentials created already, so it's taken a while, but it's really ramping. Quebec launched it about a year ago. It added about 1 million users in the first 6 months. So we know consumers like this. Consumers like the trust, and they like the privacy benefits. All of these services that say, when I sign into CRA, the bank won't know what service I'm signing up to, and the government won't know what bank you chose. Thank you, Anne, for that. It's all the privacy and security by design thinking that went into this. But I think that's what's making it go. And in places like Quebec, when you show up to Revenue Quebec, it's working so well, they've put all the bank logos on top, and they've denigrated their own login to be a tiny button at the bottom, because for them to run their own login costs them more and is less efficient than using a bank login. So that's kind of what Verified Me, so that's the login piece. What Verified Me is targeted to do is create an ecosystem of parties who will provide data and consume data and let people share. So when we started this mission at SecureKey, we thought this was a problem of digital ID. Can I build a digital ID that people will use and go there? And we learned it's not about digital ID. It's about how do we create a strong enough authentication layer that when Jeff wants to prove it's him, he can log in at his bank with a what I know that he's logged into Royal Bank and proves it's him, or Scotiabank. And we can prove he's got Jeff's phone, the SIM is in the device, the SIM hasn't changed in so many days, so we're messaging that phone. And that becomes kind of like the chip and pin world. He has the phone, he knows the password, he's not sharing the password with his friends, I don't think, Jeff, and other places. So if he does that, then all of a sudden it becomes very strong. And then are you willing to, Royal Bank will share this, or Scotia will share, this is really Jeff. The telco will share, yep, coming from Jeff's phone, the SIM hasn't changed. And we can have a high assurance that it's Jeff in real time. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. So it wasn't just one party's data. So right now in the verified network that's live and in production, Royal Bank and Scotia and CIBC and TD and BMO and Desjardins are all live sharing data already. They'll share on my behalf, with my consent, my name, address, date of birth, the account number that I have at the bank, and different sets of data. Equifax is live. They'll share that it's me. There's this much fraud on my account or not fraud on my account. Here's other utility bills and other stuff I have at my address. My credit score is over 700. AML matching to match their AML matching pieces. The telcos are live, so we can check, is it your phone? Where is your phone? Governments are live. We're putting documents in, so we'll check passport and driver's license coming through. So this neat thing is for this person, this woman standing in the middle here, when she wants to get a service, it's not just proving that she's Susan or whoever her name is. That service needs more data, right? So think about your business. If I'm lending on a product, I want to know that it's Susan, and I want to know that her credit's over a certain level, or I want to know her income is over a certain level if I'm selling an insurance product. How do I do that? So what, in this case, Susan's able to share is data from her bank, her name, address, date of birth, how long she's had an account, that she's authenticated right now. From her telco, that she has this phone. What's the location of the phone? Is it in Canada? Has the SIM changed? Data from government. Does she match the face on her driver's license or her passport? Data from players like Equifax or background checks. Well, tons of fraud in the insurance world on people becoming bad and then coming back again and again. How do we get them out of the system? So with consent, if she can share all that kind of data, we can start to make better experiences. And we talk about this being like an Uber-like experience. So this isn't an insurance one, but it's basically Susan wants to rent an apartment. So consent, put your fingerprint on your Royal Bank app. It's on your phone. And then it asks her the question, are you willing to share from Royal Bank your name and address? Are you willing to share from Equifax that your credit score is over 700? The landlord doesn't need to have my whole credit file printed out, sitting in a manila envelope in their desk drawer. They need to know my credit is over a certain level, so that's all we should share in that case, right? In the next one, she has the BC driver's license, she's validated against the province, and she's got this Rogers phone. Seems like a lot of data on the screen, but in reality, that's what we're asking her to share, because that landlord wants to know, is it really Susan? And does she have this credit worthiness? Does she have this income? And when she says okay, the network will go get that data from Royal Bank, from Equifax, from the telco, and deliver it to the landlord so they can say, yes, your apartment's rented, and then you can go on to make a payment. A similar example in insurance would be things like Sun Life, who signed on. Stefan was going to come, and then he had a conflict, I guess, to come today. But I want to be inside Verified Me. I want to sign up to see my group benefits. I can't remember my member ID or my plan, but can I log in at my bank, prove that I'm Greg, and then connect that so I can start seeing my benefits on my phone without remembering any login across? So I can just prove from Royal Bank that it's actually Greg. I can verify, and they say, welcome, Greg. Be able to see your account. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with the Verified Me network. We're trying to say, let's make the authentication bar higher. So this talks about the security part that Anne talks about all the time. If someone can log into their bank, and they're spending, how many tens of millions each a year on authentication with threat metrics and all of these tools to keep the bad guys out of stealing our money, if we can use that, plus we can take the what I have and know they've got the phone, we think we're pretty high. And then if we could, on top of that, say, what if we can get to the what I am? I've matched the face on my driver's license, or I've matched the face on my passport to go prove who I am. There's some, in this whole digital world, there's some provinces and other parties say, hey, I don't need to do all that. I can just take a picture of Greg's driver's license of the front and back and check his face against that. So does anyone think that's actually secure, right? I'm trying to take a picture of this piece of plastic that's in my pocket, which I could print on a printer at home, and then see, do I match the face that's on this document here? Is that actually a good test? Or things like Alberta's doing now with their digital ID, because they have Alberta Digital. You guys wrestle with clients in KYC AML all the time. To get an Alberta Digital ID, you basically set up an email account. I'm barneyrubble@hotmail.com. They send you a PIN code, which you can put back, and then you type in the data from the front of your driver's license, and now you're Barney Rubble. And you can see your health records, you can go to CRA, you can do all this stuff. And we're kind of shaking our heads, right? Because the bad person, will we get digital with this kind of approach? 100%. How many people think we're gonna have way more fraud if that's the level of trust, right? It doesn't make any sense to us at all. But if you could have that person, hey, log into your bank and prove you're you, and here's the name, date of birth, I've had this account for 5 years, check with the cell phone, yes, they have Greg's cell phone, and they match their driver's license, we're gonna get to a bar that's way up here, where we're not gonna get the fraud happening on that account. So there's a bunch of use cases we show, and you could think about these for your insurance product as you go forward. So this is an example of a test site or some stuff we're showing to a bank like Tangerine. How would I use Verify Me? How's this gonna work in my business? I wanna know someone is who they say they are. In this case, you push the Verify Me button. It says, do you have an account at one of these banks? I click Royal. It'll take you, like Concierge does, to the Royal Bank site. You log in at Royal Bank. It says enter the out-of-band auth that came to your phone. So we're forcing them to check that they have the phone, and then we're checking with the telco to make sure the SIM didn't change on that phone in so many days. Because very often what they'll do is they'll take over the SIM. They just contact the telco, they'll do clone the SIM, do a SIM takeover, and then they'll get the message say, yeah, it's me. So we're checking to make sure the SIM hasn't changed before we do this. So we're sure that they have the right phone, we're sure it hasn't changed, we're sure they logged in at their bank, and then we can ask them, are you willing to share from RBC your name and address and your credit profile? They can look at the data, and when they say yes, they say, welcome, John, your account's created. So compare this to your reps going out to insurance clients like me, where they're taking their personal phones and taking photos of my driver's license. Not naming names, but that's what your reps did to me recently. It's not a good approach, right? You've got too much data, you've got liability if it gets stolen. And in this case, I could prove it was me in seconds, and the data would go to the right system. It wouldn't be something I'm asking my reps to carry around with them. The other thing is there was no typing here, right? I didn't have to type in my name and my address and my this and my that. All the data came and pre-filled. So there's a whole bunch of bundles that we have live in the network now. Like those of you who do KYC AML know about the new FinTrack rules and the lawyer rules on dual source. So I can get from my bank my name, address, email, phone number validated. I can get that plus an account number and institution it came from. Sorry, I can go back one. I can get direct deposit information is coming in the first quarter. So I want to validate this is Greg's direct deposit account. So instead of sending him a check, I can just push the funds into his account because I validated that this account belongs here. Oh. I think I hit the wrong button. Did I? Sarah, I think I hit the wrong button, so it's smaller now. You fixed it. All right, so there's all kinds of bundles from Equifax, identity check, card check, mobile verification, service changes. We can keep going on all the kind of data that's available, but starting now to the end of the year, background checks, driver's license, health cards, passports, all coming online into the network. So if I want to add a driver's license, it'll say, oh, I've got Royal Bank. Would you like to add a driver's license or passport? It'll push to your device, take a picture front, back, and liveness, and then say, okay, are you willing to share from Royal Bank and your driver's license? And so this is, again, a dual source kind of method to know who you are. But that in combination with a matching service that checks, hey, this driver's license was issued by Ontario. Yes, it's valid, it's still in force. Yes, the date of birth that the driver's license has matches what the bank has, matches the telco records. Yes, this person has Greg's phone. It's the same couple clicks that we showed before, but the smarts that are happening on the back end to ensure it's really me when I'm sharing are super, super high. This is one more example that you'll see in market next year. And that's, some of you have seen the work. Has anyone seen the work we did with CRA? There was a BCIP that we did before. So I want to go to the CRA. So in this case, I'm trying to open a bank account. So I'm showing up at a bank to create it, and I want to prove that it's me from Scotiabank, as an example, but also that CRA says it's Greg, and here's my income for the last 3 years, and here's how much room I have left in my tax-free savings account, and here's how much room I have left in my RSP. So what does that do to account opening when a customer is coming to us and we can know tax-free savings account room, real income, not like self-reported dummy income? What does the CRA know is this person's income for the last 3 years, so we can actually recommend products that work better and go better? And this is what I talk about as the data problem, right? If we have this kind of data, if it's a small business, what can I do? If it's an individual, what can I do to open that account and have better recommendations of products and services? And what is my risk of fraud on this transaction, right? So I'd ask the room, like, if someone shows up, they've authenticated with Scotiabank, they put their face in front of the Scotiabank app, which is a pretty strong piece. We've checked that they've got Greg Wolf on cell phone. They've logged into CRA. They've known what line 150 is. CRA is saying, here's the income. What is the risk of this onboarding flow, right? Like, I'm not going to say zero, because the bad guy could bonk the real Greg in the head and take his phone and put the face. I guess they could do some stuff. But the trick is, this is, exponentially higher than what we do today. And if there is a fraud like that, what the network hasn't verified me is the rule is to shut it down. So if the real Greg reports fraud, we can go find out where the fraud happened. We can notify those parties, and we can say, hey, shut this down because there's a problem in the network. So the network has built all these rules around consent and sharing, and what are we sharing, and then how do we help keep the customer whole if something bad does happen in that circumstance. So there's a bunch of data. This is not a tomorrow thing. There's a bunch of data that's live today, right? Checking with any bank, checking with the telco, checking with Equifax, checking your driver's license, checking your passport. All that stuff is here this year. There's new stuff coming from CRA. There's background checks coming. There's other TUs coming on the network. So other parts coming as we go forward. But generally what we're trying to say is, look, if you're trying to sign up for a service and you really want to know the person is who they say they are, maybe I'm just binding my member ID and my group plan, or maybe it's someone signing up for a new policy. If they can just prove remotely, yes, I have a bank account, and the bank will say, yeah, this is Greg, and the telco will say this is Greg, and Equifax will say, yep, this is Greg, he has this many lines, we can shut down the fraud vector pretty darn quickly on the sign-up side. On the verifier sign-in side, you may use your own login. So the health folks who are going to be using this quite a bit, like Joe Cafazzo, who runs the Bant app for 3 million people with diabetes, he'll use Verified Me to sign up, prove it's me, and prove I have my health card. But then he uses the face match on iPhone to log into his app. But when people switch to a new phone or forget their password, which they need sometimes, then he'll just say, hey, log in at your bank, prove it's you, and then I'll let you recover. So this whole notion of recovery of a credential, it becomes important, right? Because when we create a password, like my member ID for my group plan, I don't know my member ID, and I certainly don't remember my password. So every interaction becomes a reset. Calling a call center to reset that is massively expensive. Saying, hey, log in at your bank and prove it's me, let's reset it for you, Greg, is a fraction of that cost and a fraction of that time, and creates a better customer experience. So like we know from logic in the market that a lot of the ways we reset passwords aren't secure. So sending a link for healthcare records, as an example, what they do for my mom is if she forgets her password to log into women's college, they just say, send me an email, or put in your email address and we'll send you a link to your email, which is really kind of convenient unless someone takes over her Hotmail account because they fished her over her Hotmail account, in which case they have her identity, and now they see all her health records. So the reason you don't see banks using email password reset or SMS password reset is the ability for the bad guys to take that over and become us is too high. But saying, for we want to recover our passwords, we're going to have our own because we need it, we don't want to use the sign-up function, that I can still recover, use this step-up off to recover, is a pretty strong vector of attack. So that's kind of some of the progress we're making with some of the telcos who are signing up to use the service when someone is swapping a SIM or changing accounts. We're saying you should do a modicum of test, like to keep us safe. I would rather my telco said, hey, Greg, log in at your bank and prove you're really Greg before you switch your SIM. I would rather they didn't keep doing what they're doing, where anyone can know my phone number and my account and switch my SIM to a new account and then try to get data. So there's some great pieces of this network that are really strong. There's more stuff coming every day. There's probably great use cases, in the telco world. So or in the insurance world. Direct deposit's a great one. So I want to just validate this is Greg's account that's there. So CRA wants this one because, believe it or not, we're getting phone calls to say, answer this question to the CRA or you're going to jail. Anyone get that? Right? So they're trying to get into your account. Once they get into your account and engineer answering these questions, then they file a fake tax return and they change the deposit account to be a different account that has nothing to do with you. So we're trying to let CRA validate this account actually belongs to Anne or to Greg or to someone before you go through, and then you get rid of that fraud. And it's the same thing we should be doing if someone wants to set up a direct account, just be able to share it to go that way. So log in at your bank, okay to share your account. Boom, you've set up your pre-registered account, and now we've gotten rid of that check that we're mailing out on a regular basis for benefits. There's other examples like the call center one. I don't know. Do you have time to play a demo? Yeah. So can you click on the link, on the big link? Okay, or this link, that's fine. Either one. There's two different examples. One's from my phone, and one's I'm sitting on my PC at home. I have to be able to do this both ways. But I could show up for a service like I'm showing up at my insurance company or someone else. You could go down the route of asking a whole bunch of questions to validate who I am. Or you could say, hey, just click this link. It has you log in at your bank. Most banks will use facial or fingerprint recognition. It says, I'm going to validate your phone. So we go out and we check with the telco that it's actually is your phone. We're checking this in real time. That it's your phone and what's the location of the phone. Okay. And then it says, is it okay to share your name and address, your verified phone number to the call center? In this case, the person's looking. I want to see the data I'm going to share before I share it, so they can look at the data. A lot of people won't look, they'll just click OK. But then I click OK to share, and it says I'm done. And once it's sent the data, it'll tell me on my phone. Okay. Next week. So welcome, Matt. We're going to call you back in 60 seconds. And it rings the phone. Hey, Matt, this is us. Our point is this isn't an optimized flow, so we're going to tighten this down to be much, much shorter. Okay, next. Thank you. But the general point is most people, Mike, so most people who are doing this stuff, like when they're calling a call center at CRA as an example, they have a minor problem in that 8 million calls a year they can't resolve. So you show anyone call the CRA and try and get through that process to validate who we are, right? It takes forever, and do we all know line 150 of our tax return? Does the bad guy know what line 50 of our tax return was? But the point is here, if I can prove who I am in a few seconds, and then it says, hey, I'll call you back as soon as I know who you are, I don't know what your call center cost. If someone's trying to reset their member number, how long are they on the phone, and what questions do we have to ask them to reset their password for their member number, right? But if we say, hey, you can click this link, prove who you are, and we'll call you back, the customer experience is better because I'm not waiting on hold. And the cost of that is much, much lower. And you'll reset the password to keep the customer going. So we're learning from real customers what are solutions that they need today that solve some of these real problems. So that was the call center. I think this is just Sun Life again. So we can put inside the app. If there's 3 different ways the app works. You can use the verified in the app. There's a web flow where you don't have to have any app at all, and then you'll see this start showing up in your banking app soon. But once it's there, it just makes things easier, right? So this is just Sun Life's testament that says, hey, this is huge for us in terms of onboarding customers, knowing who they are. And the other kind of data elements are massive for us. Like if I'm a life insurance company and a customer can show up and prove to me their validated income and prove to me how much room in their tax-free savings account, their RSP, and be authenticated with telco and bank, I should be giddy about this and building solutions that use it. So our point is, how do we get going and how do we do this stuff? Because it's available today. There's agreements. There's a great team at Prodigy who can help get going in a number of weeks to get some of these things up and going and running. And we're excited to be here and excited you guys took the time out of your day. But more than that, we're passionate about this is a problem. Like it's a problem for Canada, and we're getting industries to come together to say, hey, we have to solve this for Canadians because we're all vulnerable to these crooks who are trying to take our ID for bad purposes. So how do we get to a common system that uses government and bank and telco and others to solve it? And what are the other problems you're trying to solve in your industry, whether it's direct deposit or whether it's onboarding or whether it's password reset? There's a whole bunch of these we think you could use the application for, the underlying network, and really build solutions that matter to your customers. So this just says it's available now, and DJ's here on my team, but as well, the Prodigy folks are great at helping to implement these things. They know the technology backwards and forwards, so we thank you for coming to see what we're doing, and we're excited about the afternoon we have to talk about the solutions. Okay, so now I have to introduce my hero. She wasn't my hero at the beginning because she beat the crap out of us on how we had to do privacy by design, and no, that's not good enough, and the consumer has to consent every time. Now we're on Anne's good side, so we love Anne. But when she was Privacy Commissioner for Ontario, she was very strict about the rules, and that helped us a ton, getting this right, this consumer consent every time, to be able to do the kinds of things we're doing. We wouldn't be able to do without Anne Cavoukian, who started Privacy by Design and now Privacy and Security by Design. So I'm thrilled to introduce Anne Cavoukian, who really knows this space way better than I do.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be taking this to a different level just to give you an idea of why perhaps you should care about these issues. The security issues are without question, and I'm a big fan of Greg. I can't believe I gave him any grief. Did I really give you grief? Like, it was a long time ago when I was commissioner. Everything has changed since then. Greg and SecureKey are amazing, and I do have a thing. Is it up? I don't know where it is. Okay, great. And there's my talk. So I'm going to go very quickly because I just want to set the stage as to why should you care about this stuff? You should care about this stuff because it relates to your freedom, to that of your children, to future generations, and preserving that freedom, to me, is essential. That's what, to me, privacy is all about. It forms the foundation of our freedom. So I always want to dispel the myths because everybody thinks, privacy is all about secrecy. It's about having something to hide. If you're a law-abiding citizen, what's the problem with the state and with everybody having access to your information? The problem with that is that's not what freedom is about. It's not what privacy is about. Privacy is all about control. It's about personal control relating to the uses of your information. Freedom of choice is critical, and the Germans have a wonderful term for this called informational self-determination. That should be the individual who determines the fate of his or her personal information. And it's no accident that Germany is the leading privacy and data protection country in the world. It's no accident they had to endure the abuses of the Third Reich and the complete cessation of all of their privacy and their freedom by the Stasi. And when that ended, they said, never again will we allow the state to strip us of our privacy and our freedom. And they've lived up to that. I went to many conferences in Germany when I was privacy commissioner. Each conference was started to a reference to that time, lest we forget. You want to be reminded of those things because otherwise you think, what's a big deal? It is a big deal. I talked to a lot of millennials. I talked to actually the Gen Zs, the latest. They really get privacy, believe it or not. They understand the value of it enormously in a way that I think has been missed by the millennials, but that's another subject matter. One of the reasons it's so important that the individual be in control is because context is key. Only the individual knows the sensitivity or lack thereof associated with their personal information. And anyone who knows me knows I talk very publicly about some things that I would never expect anyone to reveal. I've had a lot of neurosurgery. I talk about it because I want people to know you can get past really bad things and you can actually get much better afterwards. I want to give people hope, and I want people to understand the unbelievable sensitivity associated with data that should never be released. Just an anecdote, before I was appointed as commissioner, the very first term, the legislature, who are the body that would appoint me, they called the EA of the former commissioner and asked her if they thought I was up to the job because they knew I'd had some neurosurgery. And fortunately, the EA liked me and said, yeah, there's no problem. But I would never have known if she had said, nah, she can't cut it. She's just not up to the job, because I would never have learned that. These are the things that you don't know that could come back to bite you and haunt you, associated with releases of your personal information in an unauthorized manner outside of the proper context. that you may never learn about, but they can impact your life dramatically. I can't even see this from here. This is a very important slide. Surveillance is the antithesis of privacy, is the exact opposite. The tracking of your activities and the surveillance is just such a constant these days, especially in a centralized model. You may recall, I'm sure you heard of it, about a year and a half ago, Tim Berners-Lee went public and he said, "I'm horrified at what I've created in the World Wide Web. It is a centralized model, a honeypot of personal information that yields tracking and surveillance of all your activities." You look at the Facebooks and the Googles and the massive amounts of personal information they have access to, which they choose to do in whatever ways they want. He went to a decentralized model. He created Solid, which is now growing, but more importantly, it's a direction of decentralization that is also growing to preserve identity and privacy, and it's absolutely critical. I'm going to talk very briefly about privacy by design, which I created a long time ago. It has really taken off. I barely see this from here. We had a lot of success with it. In 2010, it was voted as an international standard by the International Assembly of Privacy Commissioners and Data Protection Authorities. And I remember talking to them about it afterwards because I was surprised that it was unanimously passed, because most commissioners are brilliant, what I call lawyers. They love drilling down into Section 29, Sub 2, Part A, and applying that to the fact situation and getting a wonderful outcome. But the problem was, it's too little too late to leave it to regulatory compliance after the fact. And that's what I was trying to drive home, that we were missing the majority of the harms, that we were only addressing the tip of the iceberg. And most of the commissioners agreed with that. And they said, it's no longer possible in this day and age of ubiquitous computing, massive online connectivity, social media bounding. It's simply no longer possible to protect privacy just based on a regulatory model, which is always after the fact, after the harms arise. I wanted a model of prevention, much like a medical model of prevention, where you can embed the much needed privacy protective measures into the design of your operation and make sure that they are embedded, bake it into the code, bake it into your data architecture. And that's what moved this forward. We've had great luck. It's been translated into 40 languages. And when I was commissioner, not a week would go by I wouldn't hear from some jurisdiction. In fact, just last week, I heard from someone in Saudi Arabia, and they said, "Oh, we heard that it's been translated into Arabic. Can you send us the translation?" It took a while to find it, but we found it, and we're sending it to them. It's just unbelievable how much interest there is in this. I just got an email from Morocco asking me to go there to speak on privacy by design, because they're now growing this in a big way, and privacy and security by design. It's just, there's a real global presence. Yes, the two essentials. I've talked about the need to be proactive, but the other one, which drives me crazy, is people are still wedded to the zero-sum model of either or, as privacy versus security, or privacy versus data utility. And I can assure you, it's never privacy that wins against security, for example, nor should it be, but I sure as hell wasn't gonna have it the other way around. So the model that we tried to build was you must have privacy and security hand in hand. While the term privacy subsumes a much broader set of protections than security alone, in this day and age of daily cybersecurity attacks, if you don't have a solid foundation of security end-to-end with full lifecycle protection, you're not going to have any privacy. It's absolutely essential to build it in. And that's why I really hate the win-lose of positive sum, negative, well, not positive sum, zero sum. And I should tell you, when I did my graduate work at U of T years ago, I'm dating myself now, Anatole Rappaport was a professor there. I mean, he's the father of game theory, and he was amazing. And I was just like this, I used to fawn at his, I just learned everything I could. And I remember I used to say, Professor Rappaport, why are people so wedded to zero-sum models? I'm the eternal optimist. I want you to have multiple positive gains. So I always preferred a positive sum model where you can have two positive gains at the same time, as opposed to a zero sum, which is plus minus zero sum. And he said, and it's easy. Zero sum is a lazy man's way out. That is so much easier to do than positive sum to multiple positive gains, but the return is so far greater when you do positive sum to positive gains at the same time. And that has just guided me in this area always. And that's more on how important it is to do positive sum. And I remember I talked to lots of people about this. I remember years ago I called it the Year of the Engineer, and I went around talking to engineers, data scientists, to make sure they could do what I was asking, bake it into the code. And I remember Bruce Schneier, a brilliant leading cryptographer, he said to me, Ann, you're talking about unnecessary trade-offs. You don't have to do this zero-sum thing. People, again, are lazy. It's much easier to do one versus the other, but they're false dichotomies. You can do both, and you should do both, and that's always been my guiding principle. I'm not going to take up all your time going through this. I'm just going to point to, there are 7 foundational principles which form the foundation of privacy by design, and this could look 100 different ways in terms of its actual implementation. 2 things I want to point out to you. Privacy is the default setting, absolutely critical. That's the game changer. Because instead of expecting you, the customer, to search through all the terms of reference and wade through all the legalese in the privacy policy to find the opt-out box that says, do not use my information for any other purpose, nobody does that. Life is short. Doesn't mean people don't care about privacy. All the public opinion polls, 90 percentile in the last 3 years, concerned for privacy. 92% very concerned about loss of control over their data. So there's such a trust deficit. This flips it on its head. Privacy as the default says to people, you don't have to worry about privacy. You don't have to ask for it. We give it to you automatically. It's the default setting. We are only permitted to use your information for the primary purpose of the data collection you gave it to us for. You don't give somebody your information and say, do whatever the heck you want with it. You give it for a particular purpose. Primary purpose of the data collection, purpose specification, then use limitation. You limit your use of the information to that primary purpose. And what I've seen companies that have done privacy by design, which builds trust like no other. It builds trusted business relationships. They've come back to me and they've said, when we have sought for additional consent, secondary use that arises later on, we go back to our customers and seek their positive consent. We always get it. When you have that trust, your customers are happy to allow you to use their information for another purpose. You explain to them why you're doing it. What they don't want you to do, you give it to an unauthorized third party with whom they have no business relationship and there's no trust. So within the group that does privacy by design in terms of a company, it just builds such trust and you gain a competitive advantage amazingly. And Greg has done this from day one, which is why I have such great respect for him and for SecureKey. The rest, I'll just point to number, I think it's 4. End-to-end security. I've always emphasized this. This has always been part of privacy by design. But last year, one of my colleagues said, Ann, get off your duff and really focus on privacy and security by design. It's like I have nothing to do. But he was right, and I started a privacy and security by design. It's an international council where we have not-for-profit status where people have donated funds to promote research in this area. So we're building this out in a big way, and we're having great luck with it. I want to talk to you just a little bit about Verified Me. I mean, this is, look at the line right at the bottom. Where does it say? I had, no, I've got it wrong. Your identity in your control. I don't see it there. I don't know what happened to it. Doesn't matter. That's one of the primary premises of Verified.me. Your identity in your control. What did I start with? I started with talking about how privacy is all about control. And identity is the most valuable piece of information that you wish to retain very strong control over. This is absolutely critical. And in all the ways in which Greg described the variety of uses and multiple access to your data from banks, insurance companies, and others, the notion of control and retaining it is absolutely critical. So I just really want to applaud Greg and SecureKey for doing this, because I remember Greg telling me, we go beyond double blind, it's triple blind. So it's such a unique formulation where one party doesn't have to know what the other party is doing with the other. You just need to be assured of the fact that this identity is real and it's solid and trustworthy and under the control of the data subject, the individual. So it is amazing, and that's why I love working with Greg. Very quickly, I'm sure you're all familiar with the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, came into effect about 1.5 years ago. This is such a huge game changer, and to my delight, as you may know, they've included privacy by design in it, which is huge, as data protection by design and privacy as the default. You may recall that was the second foundational principle, and I said how critical it was. It's actually in here. That's why I'm getting calls literally from all around the world. They're building on privacy by design, wanting to know how do we do it. I mentioned Morocco the other day. I get calls like that all the time. And I was going to say, it's personal. I choose not to travel that much anymore, but what I do is I produce a video, and we have very good video production facilities where I can still give the talk that they're seeking without having to go there. And I love it, because then I get emails from all around the world, people who are in attendance at the talk. I ask them to send me any questions they have. So it really works out very well. And the reason I'm including this, I would never be so bold as to say this, but Information Age a couple of years ago said, if you're doing privacy by design, it's not too much to say that if you implement privacy by design, then you've mastered the GDPR. I assure you, there's way more to the GDPR than just privacy by design. But the point is, there is an association now. When people think GDPR, a lot of them are thinking privacy by design. And to me, that's a win-win, because it grows the proactive need to embed these privacy protective measures into the design of your operations and bake it into the code. And our government, last year, in February, our federal privacy commissioner has been pressing the federal government, to update our federal private sector legislation, PIPEDA. It's dated early 2000s, and we now, for the first time, no longer have essential equivalence with the European law, the GDPR. That's the first time. We've always had essential equivalence until now. So Commissioner Terrien went to the government and said, come on, guys, we got to upgrade the law. We need to add privacy by design into it, because after all, it was created by one of ours, a Canadian, Ann Kavukian, and we need to put it in. So in February of last year, they responded with what I thought was a very promising paper towards privacy by design, which seemed to indicate their intention to do something. The elections are coming up, nothing has been done, so let's hope for the next government. I am the eternal optimist. Never give up hope. And that's the other thing. This is just a course I teach at Ryerson, an online course, because there's been so much demand for it globally. But let me just point out one thing. I want to point this out to you. Never, ever give up. And that sounds so obvious. I tweet every morning between 5:30 and 6 a.m. My husband is a saint. He truly is. But I do it because there's so many stories that come out from the East, and I want everyone to know what's going on, and I try to tweet the latest stories of the day and some comments about it. Invariably, I will get at least one, sometimes two tweets back that say, you know, lady, give it up. That ship has sailed. Privacy's dead. And I say, the hell with it. You give it up. Get another ship. You don't tell me that privacy's dead, because it's hard slogging. Yes, I know the massive growth of surveillance. Trust me, I'm fully aware of that. But here are the things, here are the measures that are being implemented to address that. I know we're like the David versus the Goliath of surveillance, but I mean, you know how that story ended. But I don't want to slay Goliath. I want to embrace him in a dance. I want privacy and data utility, privacy and security. We need to have both. I do a lot of volunteer work with the UHN, University Health Network, where I had most of my surgeries, and they're fabulous, and I'm fabulous, so I'm very grateful. And they, like other hospitals, approach me now when they're having trouble with their REBs, their research ethics boards, because REBs are taking a very hard line and saying, we want privacy, so we're not going to give you any access to any data for research. That's the exact thing drives me crazy, that zero-sum either or. So we're not going to help any patients or future generations because we want to protect privacy. Are you kidding me? You have to do both. And I work with them. So they send the RAB to me, or me to the RAB, and I say, you know, I really care about privacy, right? Yeah. Okay, here's how we can do both. You have to do both. And there are so many different ways of doing both. You never give up. You find solutions that enable you to have multiple solutions come to it. I've talked too long. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Anne. That was great. They told me to. I'm just following Jeff. I'm just doing what I'm told. Thanks, Anne. Like the stuff Anne talks about with this privacy and security, it's easy to check an Equifax database or look at a driver's license to know that Anne exists or Greg exists there. And what we're trying to do is say, how do we know it's really Anne right now doing this? So without the security of, hey, log in at your bank, check your phone, do that kind of stuff, we wouldn't get to this kind of ability where we could have privacy and security by design. So our next speaker, Shashank, is somewhere here. Comes from Scotiabank. He owns the digital, he's director of digital, and he's director of identity services for Scotiabank. And we thought it would be good to share a perspective on why are the banks doing this, right? Like, believe it or not, this is a crap load of work for them to add to be able to share data. You can imagine their privacy people. What? You're going to share data? What's the liability? What's the risk? Everything else. It took a long time. It took a lot of lawyers. It took a lot of people to get there. And the FIs are doing it. In doing this, it isn't a move the needle kind of revenue game. It's about we have to step up and do this for customers and for our customers. Because if we don't do it, it's not getting solved. So maybe I'll turn to Shashank, who can talk about the bank perspective in all of this.
You guys can hear me well, right? Okay, it's too loud. You'll have to bear with me. I am down with cold for a week now. I have 2 little ones, and I'm in that vicious circle where I fix one up and take a breath, and then, you know, other one gets sick. So my name is Shashank, and I am the director for digital identity at Scotiabank. What it essentially means is that I look at the overall digital identity roadmap for the bank and look at capabilities that we need to build in-house, in partnership, by our brand, and integrate it with our existing operations and services that can offer a seamless experience to our customers. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience in partnering with SecureKey and other banks. And we have some folks from TD, Kevin, there at the back. I believe things that we're going to talk about here is going to be valuable as you are looking to leverage Verified Me to solve some of the problems you are facing in your organizations. And the use cases are many. We are at the moment looking at customer onboarding as one of the things that is frankly broken across industries. You are trying to force fit your physical identity into a space which is truly digital. Customers are expecting a different experience, and unfortunately, at the moment, the capabilities that are out there do not allow you to do so. So, customer onboarding, payments, call center validation, many of these use cases that are directly relevant to your organizations and your industry, as well as something quite important. Before we begin, let's start with a bit of a fun. I found this Dilbert joke while I was trying to look for something to start off the discussion with. And I was quite lucky that this is very specific to digital identity. And it took me some time to find it, but it was all worth it. So what is digital identity? I'm sure, like, if you look in your pockets, you can probably find plastic. It's a driver's license. This is essentially a permit to drive, which begs the question, why do we use it to prove you are who you say you are. And in all aspects of your life, starting from going to open an account at a branch or going to Roger's store to get a new contract for the phone. The other day I was at the daycare and the teacher was new and she didn't recognize me. So she says, do you have an ID on you? And I took this out and she's like, yeah, you're good to take this kid. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, in all aspects of our lives, this plastic plays such an important role. It is something which is truly not digital, but we use it for all our digital journeys. High degree of trust? I don't know, because if you think about it, it's very easy to create this plastic, and probably takes you an hour to create a card, picture, and if you're good at it, you can create a really good piece of it that you can go in to a branch, to a store, present it to people, and folks would look at it and just simply say, they are as good as you. A person sitting behind the chair at the branch looks at the picture, looks at you and says, yep, this looks legit, and go ahead and onboard the customer, right? So as we start to think of plastic, this piece of plastic not being the gold standard, you wouldn't be surprised seeing information and news articles of this nature. Because the reality of it is, we don't really offer very good customer ability to our customers to prove their identity. And no wonder, as you go into this world of digital and customers' preferences and taste are changing, you have an issue at hand where you are trying to migrate your transactions from your stores, from your brick and mortar facilities to your digital world. And you're not really offering customer an ability to have a seamless experience to prove who they are, and it is safe and secure and easy to use. You are still trying to force fit a plastic, take a picture next to you, and we are going to look at this image, and we are going to look at your face, and we are going to map the two together and say, this is good or not good. And those ways are, in some sense, force-fitting your physical identity into the space of digital, which I think is, at the moment, the biggest challenge we have. If you truly think, and this is a bit of a busy slide, but feel free to kind of read through, but today, as we look at all aspects of our life, and a large part of that is now digital e-commerce, as you start to look at shopping online. In the world of payments, payments was a rather easy thing when you had to go to a store, insert your card, and that was a card present transaction because you enter a 4-digit PIN and you are physically present there. So you shouldn't be surprised to know that the fraud volumes on card present transactions actually, compared to digital world, e-commerce actually are quite low. And the reason is primarily because we have the ability to prove your identity when you are physically present. You have a credit card, so you have a PIN. You have a driver's license, you can establish that. But the moment things turn to digital is where you will start to see this challenge, where a card not present transaction, all I need is 16-digit card number, expiry, and CVV, and I can push in as many transactions until the banks start to notice that there is a suspicious activity happening, apply a block. So those challenges are not new, and as you are starting to see customers changing their behavior, this is becoming even more important. And as custodian of financial and identity information, and banks are actually one of those institutions, we have financial information of our customer, we have information regarding their identity, personally identifiable information. You wish like there was a solution that can help the customer capture their identity and use it and present it for various means and purposes every single time with their consent. Consent has to be explicit, where they know clearly the data usage and where that information is going to be used and in what form. I think that would be that solution that will win this battle. And today, as we go through this experience of building Verified Me, that's what we all are aiming to do. Greg, all the banks, us. The vision is create an ecosystem. And this is not, I mean, I used to hear it all the time, and I never took a minute and think about what a challenge it is to create a marketplace in digital world. And as you start to see this get on this journey and start to onboard folks who have the ability to share the data, have entities who will consume data for different purposes, and have that plumbing done, which is what SecureKey has built, Verified Me. This was not an easy task, and we are still kind of like at the starting stage at the moment. We soft launched the service this spring, and now business development activities are happening at a great pace. We are looking to onboard new players into the ecosystem. All this to say, this network would be as good as how many players there are on it, and what are the use cases, and actually I shouldn't even say use cases, what are the problems for various industry this marketplace, this digital identity platform is gonna solve. As banks, and more specifically Scotiabank in this case, which these are the use cases we are exploring. The first one, as I was saying, was customer onboarding, and that's a super difficult problem at the moment, where today, if you go to any bank's website, they all have an ability to onboard you digitally. But if you look at that experience, I personally think there is a lot of room to cover. And a service like Verified Me, where I can port the information from your other financial institution, Equifax, TransUnion, CRA, other entities into the ecosystem, take it all together, package it, onboard that customer digitally, I would have much better confidence, considering the fact that all these data points are coming from different institutions. Also the fact that customer has provided its explicit consent through the app or in the web journey, and you will see a bit of a demo afterwards as to how we are planning to do this. And I am able to store that information. The information doesn't sit in a centralized location anywhere. The moment the customer clicks on I consent and agree to share the information, data moves from TD, RBC to Scotiabank, CRA to Scotiabank. It is in flight for a millisecond, so that is the time when the information is in the air. And even when it is encrypted, hashed, and salted. So when we designed this solution, one of the key things that we had to think of was, how do we make sure the information stays safe at the same time? We don't really have full insight into what where the information is being shared, for what purpose, because of the whole privacy related concerns. And I think the way the service is designed now, it's a 3-turn blind system. It's a blockchain-based system, so everything is audited. You can track if there is a suspicious activity. We have support tools in place today that you can open up and understand where exactly that transaction flowed through, from which entity to which entity. And getting to this place is been a remarkable experience. So we started off in 2016, and we thought, oh, this should be a 6-month project, cross-enterprise project, and we are going to like have 4 teams do this. And we launched this March. So a year, 12 months, 13, 14 months behind schedule. And I'm so glad actually it happened that way. Because as we went on to this journey, what we started to realize was, this is not a tech project. When we came to the first place, and all the banks got together, and Greg, credit to him for like pulling these big entities together. We noticed that, well, there has to be frameworks. There has to be frameworks for liability. There has to be framework for fraud management. There has to be framework for privacy. And none of that existed because this is the first of its kind ambitious initiative where you're using blockchain to move data across 7 different institutions, which they in itself have their own challenges. Talk to your information security teams, and you will realize what it would take to open up a network and pass personally identifiable information outside of your ecosystem. That journey has been a remarkable journey. It took us a year to agree on those frameworks, have those building blocks ready. The tech part, I'm not going to discount, was a significant work effort because you're building an adapter up here, a blockchain node, into your ecosystem. And that in turn gets hooked to different systems internally. If you're sharing data, for instance, if you are using this to open your account digitally, that effectively means our deposit systems, host systems, need to consume that data, create a record, and have that ability to surface it back to the customer through a mobile banking or a web banking view or platform. And that is simple to say, but if you start to build it, you will truly notice that this becomes one of those cross-enterprise projects where you have 16 teams working. So the way we created our governance structure within the bank was we had fraud, privacy, AML, information security, all control groups that I can think of at the bank, legal, and then on the tech, we had a big committee, and we had working group members from each of these institutions, each of these groups coming together to discuss, provide input, and we had obviously a steering committee which was built of executives of each of these areas, that if a situation comes up where we say, well, how will the liability work here if it's a fraudster who gets through from bank A and goes into bank B and gets a line of credit by taking over an account? Who is liable here? So it took us a while to figure all that out, and I'm sure that as you would start on this journey, you will start to notice these challenges as well. The good news is that we blazed a bit of it by creating those architectures, those fundamental building blocks. And I think that part is to a very good degree done. So now there is a ready-to-go platform. You come and you plug your systems and off you go, right? There was a demo here. Sarah, is it just a click? Okay, it's working. So basically, let me just give you a quick context on this. What we are showing here is a web version of opening your account using Verified Me. So you go to Scotiabank website, and it says register using Verified Me or open your account using Verified Me, and you click on that, it gets a QR code, you scan it, it directs you into a journey where you consume information from another bank. In this case, it is RBC, and then you are going to consume information from Equifax, which is the credit rating agency. You combine all that together, and you onboard the customer digitally. So you go there, sign up with Verified Me, choose your financial institution you're going to port the data from, RBC in this case, enter your credential, second factor authentication. Now they're getting the data package ready. You see there are 2 data bundles here, RBC account profile and then credit check. The moment you say I consent, all the information moves over here and you're good to go. So that was just a bit of a demo. We are still kind of like figuring out the specifics of it. Our immediate focus, given we just launched in spring, our immediate focus is to start credit card onboarding and deposit account opening as our first use case. And we are now engaging with our insurance friends within the bank to look at other potential use cases that we can kind of like start to explore. This is just a laundry list of things that we are actually hoping to like internally talk about with our partners, but something to think through for you guys as well. Yes, please. So probably Daryl or Greg, you guys could come in here to speak because I know there is one, what's the company, the title lock company that we are onboarding into the ecosystem. Terranet, yes. So we will have the source of truth, if you will, into the ecosystem. Essentially, let's say a customer comes in and provides or request for a service, in this case, the claim ID verification. You could literally ping the source of truth in real time to establish the credibility of the individual, the entity, and then you can proceed to the next steps. Now, it's up to individual institutions to have second factor authentications in place. So if you think you need a further validation verification, you could build it into your solutions. And that's something which we are exploring as well. For high value transactions, we are going to be enabling second factor authentication. And that's where in-stream services like in-stream are going to come in handy to ensure there's no SIM swaps and stuff like that. Yes, please. Say it again. So internally, yes. So data comes to the place, all the way to the node. Internally, you will have to build, your infrastructure have to be built, and it is API driven. That's how we are building it, to consume that data points from the nodes into your onboarding systems, right? So what we have at this stage, what we have is that we have done an integration to a place where our digital systems are taking the data all the way to the host, and we are trying to leverage as much of as a backend system that we have today. One of the challenges that it's hard to change everything at the same time. That has been like a traditional issue within the banking. The other challenge is that we actually don't know if this is the right way of doing it or there are better ways of doing it. So what we are doing is a bit of a test and learn approach where we launch it for a small segment of customers, see how's it working, tune it, and then expand it to the bigger group. Yes, please. Yeah. Also the fact that the FinTrack guidelines, in some sense, force institutions to look at different source of truth, and two in this case. So once we are getting a data bundle from, let's say, a bank, we have to ping the other source to look at, what if the file size is less than 36 months or whatever, then we have to think of like additional sources to make sure that we are satisfied that this is a genuine data package coming through, and then we combine all together. So I think in that sense, they don't lose relevance in any form or shape. We continue to leverage them today, and as part of this ecosystem, it will become even more handy, but yeah. So yeah, and realistically, the data that they have is essentially data that they've sourced from banks. Like, it's pretty much it coming back to us. So that kind of works, yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah. And and I don't know if like, at least from Scotiabank perspective, I can speak to it. Like, our objective is this. Our customers today actually are telling us, screaming at us through numbers, that our behavior is changing. we don't really do a chip and pin transaction anymore. So you better figure out a way to identify who I am and don't block me while I'm standing in line at LA, right? And that happens all the time because we say like, oh, this is suspicious transaction because I can't really verify it. But capabilities of this nature will help us get to that place. And I'm guessing like, as you are thinking through your journey, that should be an aspect to think of. If the middleman is not adding a relevant value to that value chain, they will get out anyways, right? Any other questions? If not, then I will hand it back to Greg. I'm happy to chat afterwards.
We're just going to have a little break now, about 10 minutes. I know it's a bit hot in here, so, and everybody's been patiently listening, so I'd ask you to please stand up, go to the bar, help yourselves to something to drink, some food. We'll start again in 10 minutes, and we'll catch up, so thank you. So hopefully the alcohol will stimulate the conversation and not put everybody to sleep. I know insurance is fascinating. And I had a conversation earlier where I was asked to read the Privacy Act tonight to keep myself awake. And I did want to thank the people that had talked before, in particular Anne. It's inspiring to see the passion she has and the value that she's brought to us all as Canadian citizens, and appreciate the continued fervor and strength and passion you bring to this. We really do appreciate it, so thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Jamie Rogers, who is our head of our insurance practice at Prodigy. Jamie's got over 30 years, and I'm dating him now. He started in insurance as a 2-year-old selling door-to-door. But he's got lots of experience. He's done a lot of things in the consulting realm. He's been both inside the insurance company as well as on the outside of insurance. Most recently as a chief data officer for one of the insurance companies, and prior to that, running the insurance practice for Gartner. So we're very pleased to have him be part of our team. I'm very fortunate to have him with us and looking forward to hearing what he has to say about insurance.
Thank you, Jeff, and I'm very happy to be here and talk to you all about what I believe to be an incredible opportunity for insurance as a result of digital identity and consent through Verified Me. This is a bit of a great circle of life moment for me, actually, and I wanted to tell a little story quickly, if you don't mind. And actually, the person I hope doesn't mind is Greg. So, a long time ago, we went to public school together in Guelph. And it was a time of peace signs and flower power and Richard Nixon and the original Trudeau, marbles, beads, and a few pieces of clothing made out of fake fur. So fake fur boots made you look like Bigfoot, fake fur vests, and I think they're coming back now, and fake fur mittens. So anyway, this is the very first time I've told this story. I've never told it before, and Greg probably will not remember it, but I do. I played against Gretzky. I'm sure he doesn't remember playing against me. Anyway, it was winter. It was recess. We were outside. We were hanging out. Joe Wolfun was there as well. And I think Joe passed me a bottle of Coke. And I had my furry mittens on. And I tried to grab the bottle of Coke, but it slipped right through my mitts and bonked Greg right in the head. He didn't cry, but look, it hurt. He was tough back then. And He must have told his mom because I was in the principal's office the next day defending myself that it wasn't intentional, it was just an accident. Well, you stole my thunder. So, and maybe it was a good accident, right? Because maybe it rewired his brain to come up with some of the things that he's come up with over the years, like footprint software and 724, concierge, and now Verified Me. And so while I didn't invent Verified Me, I wish I did. Maybe I'm sort of partially responsible for it anyway. Anyway, I promise not to drop another bottle on your head during the networking portion of this thing, Greg, but I actually would be interested to see what might happen if I did. And could I get some royalties? All right. So back to the subject at hand. Let's get after it. And I do have a small CNN addiction problem. Trust has always been part of the insurance industry. Back to the Phoenicians, if I remember my principles and practices. Part of Lloyd's Cafe. Trust has always been core to insurance and always will be. Trust is critical for the responsible execution of the business of insurance. Trust in the characteristics of the risk that you're contemplating underwriting, right? Trust in the characteristics of the claim, the veracity of the claim, and the services that are going to be delivered as a result. And trust on the part of your policyholder that you're actually going to pay the claim, in the event of a loss. And insurance companies spend a lot of time, effort, and money getting to trust, right? It's why there's a distance between quote and bind. And it varies based on the line of business, but sometimes that distance is so great that the customer that you do want to underwrite, goes somewhere else. But it's important, right, to have trust. It's important to move forward in the customer acquisition process or the claims payment process with trust and confidence that you know what's going on, because otherwise insurance companies leak. Premium leakage, right? Claims leakage, and the difference, the financial gap between what is and what should be has a cascading impact right across the organization. It's got an impact on reserves, it's got an impact on loss and combined ratios, it's got an impact on what you can put aside for investments, it's got an impact on what you have to put aside with respect to capital, it's got an impact on return on equity. You name the KPI, leakage has a sort of a negative effect, and I'm talking about negative leakage, not positive leakage. And so it's really critically important that insurance organizations trust who it is they're dealing with, and who it is they're delivering claims payments and services through. But in a digital world, as I think everybody knows, it's getting harder and harder to trust what you see and hear, right? It's getting harder and harder to believe what people are telling you online. And it's not just the result of bad actors, right, and their mastery of some of the advanced technology and their use of data, but we're seeing sort of the manipulation of the truth in other areas as well. And it's becoming becoming a problem. So for example, stepping out of character for a second. Everybody familiar with what deep fakes are? Okay. Yes? All right, so Control-Shift-Face has done a couple of interesting deep fakes. So stepping back into character for a second, who's the policyholder here? Right? Is it Tom Cruise or is it Bill Hader? Looks like Tom Cruise. Back to Bill Hader. It's very difficult. It's a very scary manipulation of a digital image. But it's important to know, especially as insurers, because people and businesses and things each come to you with their own set of unique risks and behaviors, right? So Tom Cruise has a penchant for doing his own stunts, and this is a photograph of him just before he broke his leg doing a stunt in Mission Impossible. And then there's Stefan, who has his own set of risks as well. And recently, Jordan Peterson, the U of T psychologist, had his image and voice stolen, and there were a number of deep fakes created of him rapping, I think, to a song, which he kind of found amusing, but other deep fakes of him saying things that he'd never actually said. And so it prompted him to write an op-ed in the Financial Post and ask the question, are we entering a future where the only credible source of information is direct personal contact? And he pled in that op-ed for a solution. I hope it doesn't come to be. I like the internet. I like self-service apps. I don't really like talking to customer service people. I like talking to you, but that's about it. I want the internet to stick around, right? And coincidentally, Gartner, my alma mater, recently came out with a paper that suggests that for insurance companies, it's getting harder and harder to not only build digital investments in a business strategy, but to harvest the benefits of digital investments that have already been made. It's getting harder. And Gartner, proposes a few reasons for that. And they're kind of like the classic reasons, Organizations have underestimated the amount of effort it takes to implement a digital initiative or to become digital. Organizations have not figured out the proper metrics or KPIs in advance to actually measure benefits after the fact. That's actually one of the biggest reasons for project failure is nobody actually measures the benefits. Lack of desire to change. So if you're doing well, maybe executives are saying, like, well, why invest in digital? What's the point? A lack of customer centricity, so not putting the customer in the middle and thinking about the customer journey from their perspective in a digital world. And inconsistency in the definition of the digital future. So we're part of the organization thinking about the future differently than another. So lack of consensus on what the future state looks like. I might put another one on there too, and large insurance companies will know what I'm talking about. The complexity of a legacy IT environment can get in the way of getting stuff done. But my hypothesis is that without a solution for digital risk identity, trusted, authenticated digital risk identity, there's really only so far that organizations can go in their trip towards a digital future. we might actually be coming to a point where there's diminishing returns in digital investment if we haven't figured out how to collect authenticated, trusted risk data in a digital world. We'll still have to invest human effort, paper, money, time, and post-collection verification in order to get to the responsible level of trust that insurance companies need to get to in order to minimize leakage on the premium side and the claim side, right? So it's trust, but we need to take the time necessary to verify the risk data in order for us to proceed any further. And so, even if insurance companies fixed all those things that Gartner identified as maybe root causes of their inability to harvest the necessary benefits out of digital investment, or to get digital proactively and successfully into the business strategy agenda, trust for insurance companies in a digital world will remain the impediment, that blockage on the road to digital nirvana, unless we have a solution. And I think that's why Verified Me for insurance is such a game changer. And we heard a number of really interesting phrases earlier today around it's an ecosystem, right? It's an expanding ecosystem. And a few other things. But what I look at Verified Me as is a platform or a mechanism that allows for the merging of trust with verify. And it's like trust and verify in one digital interaction with a customer who is giving you consent to get to trust and verify. So SecureKey, tell me if I'm wrong in any of this stuff. Verified Me is the platform that connects digital asset consumers, so think insurance companies, with digital asset providers, with a digital citizen in the middle, providing consent for that consumer to do so. So there's a license created between Verified Me and the digital asset consumer, and there's a license created between Verified Me and the digital asset provider. And those things are cryptographically matched somehow to allow for the delivery of the digital asset or the digital ID to be provided directly to the consumer. And consent by the digital citizen is recorded and maintained. It's immutable and auditable going forward. So at a high level, that's what I see the Verified Me platform doing. And I think it exhibits another aspect of a two-sided platform, and that's you can act as a consumer on one day, but you can also act as a provider the next in the platform. So where do we start identifying value or identifying potential use cases for the insurance industry? Well, we start at the beginning with what's available, and that defines our scope for an initial investigation. So it's the 6 banks, Equifax, and Endstream offering defined data bundles, right? So we know what's available today. To continue the investigation into the value for insurers, we need to place some bets on how the network will plausibly unfold. And I think we heard earlier today that there are plans for the network to expand. And so as we step into the future, we can have sort of bus stops of milestones where we can get off and take a look. So if we start today with an insurance company as a digital asset consumer or a DAC, maybe a next logical step in the evolution of the network and an insurance organization's participation in it would be as a digital asset provider. Next, we can, I think, reasonably assume that more asset providers that are of interest to insurance organizations will join the network. So there's definitely some good stuff coming from the banks and from Equifax and from Endstream. But insurance companies make underwriting decisions based on more than that, right? They make claims payment decisions based on more than that, the data that's available today. So we could think about, what are some of the organizations that might join the network going forward that are going to add value to insurance companies. Next on our journey into the future, what might happen if service providers in the broader insurance ecosystem might join the network as digital asset consumers? I can tell you some interesting things might happen if that were the case. And then finally, digital identity, consent, and all the things that are sort of carried forward into the future to this point in time become a very interesting launching point into the coming world of payments modernization, real-time rail, ISO 20022, open banking, right? And so what might the cumulative impact of all of those things that have occurred in the expansion of the network have on an insurance company's ability to participate in the new digital payments world? So I'm going to talk about some use cases, interesting ones that fall within each one of these categories. And I don't claim necessarily to have like a stranglehold on going through reference architecture. However, I identified like 50, 55 relatively quickly. So take what we know about the network, we take a bet on the future, and to do a comprehensive inventory of the potential use cases for insurance. We go through the capabilities of a reference architecture for insurance. Any reference architecture will do. This is one we had. And then identify where the positive impacts might be in the capabilities, and then use cases fall out of that. So these blue ones get lit up based on what's available right now from Verified Me. As the future unfolds, the scope of a number of capabilities expands, and there's use cases associated with those guys too. And as the future unfolds, more and more business capabilities get lit up with potential and opportunity and use cases. And I'm going to take you through 5 or 6 of them that I think are relatively interesting. And as we go through these use cases, I'm trying to keep them at a relatively high level from a business perspective, so I haven't modeled everything that the Verify Me network does. It does a lot. And so every time we see the Verified Me icon, you can assume that it's doing a few things. It's providing encryption and privacy. It's creating those data sharing licenses between the consumer and the digital individual or digital citizen, and between the digital citizen and the provider. It's actually doing some consent management on your behalf, which is very, very interesting. It can operate either on a mobile app or on the web, and I'm going to just assume that Verified Me could be embedded in your own company app or your portal. So it can be embedded and provide the functionality as well. Private and public keys for encryption and security, and then the provision of trusted, authenticated data sources over time. So every time you see the Verified Me representation in the middle of the use case, it comes with all that stuff, and probably more. So the first one, and it's a concept that's been around for a while, is relatively straightforward. When I was running insurance information services for CGI, we did some pre-fill stuff as well. But this is the pre-filling of an application form with authentic core identity data, right? Including date of birth, address, right? A first name, last name, and mobile and email from the bank. And the way that I envision it working, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, is that the insurer, when dealing with a new applicant via an app or the web, would be asked to provide consent, right, to go and collect digital identity data from the bank if they're a Verified Me user, right? So if you're a Verified Me user, apply to us leveraging the app. So we get a license created between the applicant and the insurer, and then a license is created between the applicant and the bank. And this is happening in almost real time, near real time. And then that bank-based profile with those data elements, right, is returned from the bank to the insurance company. And they can embed that in the application. They can facilitate workflow steps based on the data, and they can rely on the data having gone through the KYC, authentication, and other regulatory validation processes conducted by the bank. So while we don't necessarily have everything that we need in order to underwrite a new applicant, we're actually getting to trust faster, right? Because we don't have to spend the time to validate name and address and date of birth and a few other material underwriting factors that are coming in that bundle. We still have to verify after the fact other risk data that we need to collect, but now we can attack this certain chunk of it. And again, it's got material underwriting impact. And on the property casualty side, it's a hard market. And I've spoken with a few insurance companies, and they've told me that address is the number one thing that concerns them, and where they're spending the most time verifying, because address can be used to change your rate, right? So I can lie about my address as for property insurance. I can lie about my address for auto insurance, and address has a material impact on how much you're going to pay for premium. And I've heard that there's actually now cottage industries out there that are creating fake utility bills, right? So that those can be supplied as part of your insurance application process. So address in and of itself might be enough value to get going, right, with Verified Me. So How do we evaluate the benefits of some of these use cases? Well, we can pick a collection of benefit categories. Hopefully they resonate with you. Will this use case contribute to a cost reduction or expense reduction on your part? Well, I think it will, because you don't need to spend the time and money to verify address or name, right? You're getting that trusted data from the bank. Can you use this data to improve the ability to get to an accurate price more quickly? Yes, you can. Is it going to improve the customer experience? Well, I would hope so, right? I know that there's websites out there where you can enter driver's license number to try to improve the ability to pre-fill, right? I tried that, didn't work for me. But it's kind of like that. If I can get to completion faster, and I can be confident in the fact that I've given the insurance company explicit consent to collect this data, and I know it's being done in a private and secure and encrypted way, I mean, I'm going to feel better. So that's an improvement with respect to the customer experience. Compliance and fraud, I think it does attack that particular dimension. The recording of the consent on the network and having that available going forward for, maybe a dispute on the part of the policyholder or an inquiry on the part of the regulator. And now I've got authenticated address information, so I'm starting to chip away at the universe of fraud that exists in insurance, sort of right across the value chain. Business model innovation, maybe not so much because organizations are doing some pre-fill now, so maybe it doesn't move the yardsticks too much on that. But data and analytics, I was a chief data officer. If I can get authenticated data that somebody else has curated and verified and validated, and I can incorporate that into my master customer file or master data management, yeah, that's a benefit to me. So that's the first one, and it's like in a 2x2 matrix, right, where you've got the quick wins identified in the bottom left quadrant, right? That's a quick win from my perspective, and it's available right now. In case you get the impression that Verified Me is sort of exclusive to direct writers or direct interaction between an insurance company and the policyholder applicant, it's not necessarily the case. Okay. Lots of insurance companies rely exclusively on partners, brokers, advisors, broker-dealers, MGAs, to be the face of their business with their customers. And to also deliver quality applicant data to the manufacturer, to the insurance company. And so why not embed Verified Me, right, into the brokers or the partners process to validate identity data. We could also, if this is a life policy, get deposit account information for that initial premium withdrawal in sort of one near real-time transaction. Those licenses are created on the other side between the applicant and the bank. And then that bundle, that data bundle, right, is returned to the portal or the broker management system, whatever the intended target is, right, for inclusion in the application package that a broker or a partner or an advisor might send back to the insurance company. So it's agnostic when it comes to, I think, dealing direct or working with a distribution partner. And it comes, I think, again, with a range of benefits. So cost reduction, right? So reducing the amount of time and effort required to validate material underwriting data. Pricing accuracy, so I can get to a confident price more quickly. Customer experience, compliance and fraud, business model innovation, data and analytics. I mean, the same kinds of benefits would accrue in this use case as the one we just showed. Still in the realm of what's possible now with an insurance company operating as a digital asset consumer, we can get to some interesting new enhancements or opportunities when it comes to self-service options. Let's say that I originally became a policyholder of an insurance organization as a result of leveraging Verified Me. So now I can leverage Verified Me to more easily access self-service functionality on the insurance company's website because I don't have to remember my separate username and password. Right, so I'm leveraging bank verified identity to facilitate identity access management and login. So I've seen firsthand the reticence of some insurance organizations to extend self-service functionality with respect to data elements that will have a material underwriting impact, right? And so if you're going to change your bank account or if you're going to change your address, you're going to change some other material aspect of who you are, some insurance companies won't allow that to happen in a self-service way. They force you to call a call center and submit documentation in order to provide the evidence for that insurance identity or policy change. Now, because we know, right, we can get trusted, authenticated data from the banks around bank account or address. That makes those possibilities for self-service more real. So now I can start to offer some additional self-service transactions that heretofore I've been hesitant to introduce. On the claims side, I can now extend functionality to change the bank account into which I want my claims payments made. Because that deposit account information is part of the sort of the original or the currently available data bundle from the bank. So I've extended those new capabilities. You've authenticated and logged into our portal via Verified Me. It's a really easy thing. And now the licenses are created, right? So leverage Verified Me as part of the self-service transaction functionality. Licenses are created on the other side with the bank, as we've seen. And then the new data to support the self-service transaction is sent directly to the insurance company, and you're done. Easy as that. Lots of interesting benefits that come with this. Cost reductions, so I would anticipate fewer calls to the call center because you've introduced more self-service functionality. Customer experience is better because who likes calling a call center? Compliance and fraud, so now I'm relying again on data that's gone through regulatory processes on the part of the banks. Business model innovation, so I'm starting to move more stuff out to the edge now. And what might that mean for what I can focus on internally? And data and analytics, right? So now I've got the latest stuff on my customer. As a chief data officer, that would make me happy. All right, so now we're going to move into the next bus stop into the journey to the future, and this is the insurance company as a digital asset provider. I came across an interesting tweet the other day that helps me make the case from Identity North, and the phrase at the top is, if we put a picture of a license on a phone, we're just asking for it to be spoofed. Right? So I like that because it supports what I think is one of the most interesting use cases for insurance when it comes to verified me and digital identity, and that's proof of insurance. So again, the insurance company is acting as a digital asset provider, right? So it's made its own data bundle, right, available on the network, right? And we can help figure out what that is, but let's say it's policy number, effective and expiry date, right? And maybe a couple other fields as an initial data bundle. I would ask for the insurance company acting as a digital asset provider to give me my proof of insurance. And it could be, again, as little as 7 or 8 fields. And it would be returned to me in an encrypted fashion. That data could be displayed in really any form factor that you want. It's an encrypted XML file, right? And so you just drop it in however you want. And so maybe the form factor is, insurance pink slip for auto. And it could be anything else, right? It could be just a QR code. It could be proof that I've got group benefits, right? It could be proof that I've got any kind of insurance. But what's happening here is that the insurance company, acting as a digital asset provider, is delivering real-time proof of insurance to an authenticated policyholder, right? And that comes with some significant strategic and operational benefits. How many millions of dollars are spent mailing out policy documents that nobody wants, really? How easy is it for somebody to fake that they've got insurance? Having an image, a static image of your policy, is not really proof that you got insurance because you could have stopped paying your premium yesterday. So this is a very interesting use case about the provision of real-time insurance with the insurance company acting as a digital asset provider. All right, we're on to the next stop into the future. And this one is, as the network expands, more and more insurance-relevant data will become available, right? So we've got some pretty relevant stuff right now, but let's say MTO joins, or CRA, right? Or some other very interesting insurance-specific authenticated data providers that they need to consume in order to conduct business. And I think of, and I'm not the one who came up with the original thought, so there's an interesting quote from Dyack, but identity is context-based. And so insurers have their own specific data requirements, right, to assess risk, and it's dependent on line of business. So they need more than just base profile from the bank. They need additional data sets to fill out the picture or the identity of the risk. So for example, if it's an auto insurance applicant, what do I need? Well, I really want base profile from the bank because that gives me name and address and date of birth and other authenticated pieces of data. But I need as well, I need driving ID. So what might that be? That might be, my driver's license number. And it could be moving violations over the last 6 years, right? It could be it's my driver's license plus my MVR. I want vehicle ID as well. I want to know what kind of car, right? As an insurance company that I'm insuring. So there's a bunch of data involved, including vehicle ID. But I also want to know insurance history ID. So what's your policy history as an applicant? Who have you been insured with? Has been continuous? And what claims have you made? So the combination of these 4 specific identities equals an auto insurance identity or an applicant identity. And so let's think about those pieces becoming available on the Verify Me network. And what's the possibility? The possibility might be, let's get to policy offer in 3 clicks, right? And if you like it as an applicant, just click here to accept. So let's say MTO's on. From the previous stage, insurance companies are on as digital asset providers, and the bank is connected as well to the network. So I, as an insurance company, would ask for a license to go get your driving ID, right, which is your license and your driving history. I, as an insurer, would ask for permission to go and get your insurance history, right, from the insurance company that you're currently with. I would also ask to get your base profile from the bank, and to round it all off, right, I want to get your deposit account profile from the bank, right, because when I package this all up, I'll know where to go get the premium from. Create some licenses over here. We send back auto insurance applicant ID to the insurance company. We extend a policy offer, and I can click and accept it. Lots of benefits in this one, including the, or maybe not a benefit, but a characteristic of this use case is the beginning seeds of potentially open insurance. Just like the open banking side, when I've got insurance companies acting as digital asset providers, and a freedom for the policyholder to have their insurance data, which is theirs, right, moved around. I think open insurance is a concept that could be investigated. So that's a possibility of what happens when insurance identity starts to get built out over time. Now we're looking at service providers as digital asset consumers. So in this use case, let's say we've got Discount or Enterprise or one of the big rental companies hooked up as a digital asset consumer. The process today is that insurance companies usually email an assignment to the rental car company. So there's coverage, prepare for this person to come in. When the claimant comes in, they have to show driver's license, they have proof of insurance, produce a credit card. They have to go through like physical-based identification processes in order to get the car. On the other hand, the rental car agency could display a QR code. And if the customer is a verified me customer, scan the code. That creates the licenses to return the data that the rental car agency needs in order to release the vehicle to the claimant. We're getting proof of coverage and license information from MTO, and that's returned as a bundle. And so you can imagine that's probably an improved customer experience. It facilitates the next step in the process, which is the rental car billing the insurance company. Takes friction out of the process and may very well enable self-service or rental car coverage paid for by the insurance company, because everything could be done online. And then the last one on the road to the future is how might payments modernization, like ISO 20022 and its expanded ability to capture messages, or real-time rail, or some of the instant payment modernization that's coming in the future, be incorporated into a verified me-enabled insurance ecosystem. And the use case I've chosen for that is authenticated service provision. So we have on the left, a claim service provider. It could be anybody, masseuse, a Good Life Fitness. Think of a service provider in the claims process, connected as a DAC. right? And let's assume that in the future their practice management software has been upgraded to be ISO 20022 compliant. You have to keep those assumptions in mind. And let's say that I injured myself and I know that I've got coverage through my group benefits plan. But I'm also a verified me user. So I go into Good Life Fitness. And Good Life Fitness is connected as a digital asset consumer as part of the Verify Me network. And I talked to the receptionist and said, yeah, I hurt my back, I need some treatment. And I'm a verified me user, and I know I have insurance. And Good Life could say, or display a QR code and say, okay, just scan this. That creates a proof of coverage license from the insurance company operating as a digital asset provider. And Good Life Fitness says, okay, you're good to go. Go and see this masseuse. But not before the proof of coverage comes back into the system, as well as any copay amounts that the policyholder might have to pay. So I'm now good to go. I go see my massage therapist, and then on the way out, the receptionist says, okay, we'd like you to scan this QR code to verify that you received the services. So I'm an authenticated policyholder. I've got proof of coverage, and now I'm asserting that I've received the services from an authenticated service provider. Because the practice management software is ISO 20022 compliant, you can take that transaction, embed the fact that the claimant received the services as described, and create a message, a request for payment message that's sent directly to the insurance company, facilitating relatively straightforward reconciliation, and in real time. And if you want to talk in more detail about how this might work, talk to Marco from Prodigy Labs, who's our payments guy. But in real time, the payment would come back to the claim service provider, and they wouldn't have to wait. So that's a possible way in which Verified Me Network can integrate with payments. I haven't put any banks or Interac or anything like that on here. I'm not sure how necessarily the funds will flow. But what we've got is sort of a number of benefits here. Firstly, I, as an insurer, am getting an invoice from an authenticated service provider, and my authenticated policyholder has authenticated that they received the services. And again, chipping away at that fraud universe where I'm now much more confident, I have much more trust in what I'm paying for. So that's just a quick overview of some of the opportunity that's available now, but I think can be anticipated going forward. For me, it's one of the most amazing transformational opportunities for insurance I've seen in almost 30 years in this business. It can make a fundamental difference, and I think it is critical for overcoming that last hurdle to the true promise of digital. But it also deals with a few other things that I think insurance companies are facing. Trying to find the capacity in their organization to deal with new technologies. I mean, this is production, new technology that can be taken advantage of, and with the benefits that are available from it. So, blockchain. It helps deal with customer demographics as more and more customers need to feel secure, want to be in control of how their data is used, want to provide consent, but also want to deal with organizations in a self-service mobile way. This is a mechanism to help get there. Profitable growth, the financial benefits of some the implementation of some of these use cases, I think, speaks for itself. So attracting new profitable customers because you know they're profitable, but they want to deal with you because you value the trust that they're placing in you. But cost reduction as well in some of the activities that insurance companies have had to undertake. The regulatory environment, so increasing focus on consent and making it very specific consent for the use of specific pieces of data. I know that I had to build a consent management solution in the past. Wasn't fun. Why not rely on the Verify Me network to help you with that? And then lastly, competition and disruption. I mean, this is a technology that sort of puts insurance companies on the same footing as the insurtechs, right? And if you're on the same footing as the insurtechs with all of your experience and all of those core capabilities of that insurance companies built over the years, you can't lose. So that's it. And talk to us, and I look forward to exchanging some ideas with you during the network reception. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. We'll make this quick, I promise, and then we will break for refreshments. You can certainly ask questions. We have a Q&A session. A couple of things here. We believe fundamentally, as was put forward by Jamie, that to catalyze the investment that you've made in digital and the other IT investments you're making, digital identity and Verified Me is a critical component to that, to be able to unlock that investment. Otherwise, you're just kind of nibbling at the surface. You still have the manual processes, you still have the forms, you have all of those things. And when you go back to the fundamental here that, as Abraham Lincoln said, you know, if you trust, you will be disappointed occasionally, but if you mistrust, you will be miserable all the time. And I would suggest to you, postulate as a customer of insurance, that a lot of our processes are based on the latter concept. It makes running those businesses miserable, it makes it miserable for us as a customer. So the ability to establish trust sooner in the process, trust but verify, really is a game changer for us. So how do we do this? So a couple of things. I want to make sure everybody understands what our roles are in this. SecureKey has the fundamental platform and technology in partnership with the banks to deliver the Verified Me network promise. We are an implementation partner. We have tools and technologies that can rapidly advance your time to market, time to value, but we're a services partner. That's what we do. I describe it, some people like this, some don't. SecureKey brings power to the house. We're the guys that actually put in the fuse panel and wire it to make sure that it's actually moving stuff in the house and you're getting value. That's where we come into play. We've done it for them since the early inceptions. We understand the pitfalls, the things to stay clear of, and we can rapidly do that. We have tools that will accelerate that. We're happy to talk with you about that at another time, or any of our folks that are here. And you saw this maturity capabilities matrix. This is an insurance model for how insurance businesses operate. And what we've seen and what we think is critical to adoption is being able to take it from all these really cool things we all talk about that we could do and how we could do it, and simplify it down and say, okay, how do we get started? We get started by picking a use case, developing a service and a solution around that use case with a business case and a roadmap for where you're gonna go. That is our offering that we have. We have a quick start. It's about 6 weeks. It gets a DAC up and running for you. It does that in a way that allows us to bring that to market quickly, for you to prove that the thing works, understand the implications for your business in a secure way. It requires you to have a license from SecureKey and services from us. We use our tools to get you there. And what you get out of that also is a roadmap and a business case for how you're going to take it forward. Because a lot of folks in this room think this is all great stuff, but you still got to go back and stick it into that business case cycle inside the business. You know, there's lots of people, I know a few here that are doing, you know, like guard wire implementations, and it's, you know, all their money's going there. Okay, but if you want to get value from it, here's a good thing you can do that will really advance that for you. So, with that, little commercial on us. We're a services company, lots of awards. We're doing very well. We're very pleased. We've got a great team. We have no junior people. We're all senior folks, so we're not the breakfast club. You know, we're the people that want to go home to their families at the end of the day. But we bring that knowledge and experience to bear to help you get there faster, and that's what we're all about. You can click the QR code here if you want to get more information from us. I've listed some of the folks that are here. So Jamie runs our insurance practice. You saw Jamie. Kirk's here. Kirk's responsible for our business development. We also have Marco, who runs our payments practice. We have Doug with us as well. Doug's our head of professional services. We've got a couple more folks. I think I saw Madhu, who's responsible. There he is. He handles TD for us. So we've got a lot of folks here. Please join us for a drink and something to eat. I wanted to say thank you to Anne very much, as always, inspiring to hear you speak and the enthusiasm. Greg is our partner. We appreciate the journey and the good work that you've done. And I'd like to also say thank you to Shashank and to the other speakers. Appreciate the time today. And I know everybody's got busy schedules. And to you. And the final thing I would do is I would put out the challenge. This is up to us. This isn't going to happen for anything other than we take the initiative to make it happen. And as Anne said, it's not a zero-sum game. This is 1 + 1 = 3. It's Gestalt. And we can do that, but it takes us taking that first step and starting. SecureKey's in market. One of the things you saw from Jamie's slides, the first set of capabilities, that's all the last release. That's not the stuff that's out now in the next release. You can do this now. There's no reason to wait. So we're here happy to help you, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to speak with you further. Thank you, everyone, for coming.